Hey guys, Miss Gregory. This is the advanced lesson 4 or 5, textbook pages 299 to 302, adding and subtracting mixed numbers. You need notebook paper, pencil, and your math book. Don't forget you're supposed to be labeling your paper with the lesson number and the page number and the date. And now let's get ready. You see what your paper should be headed like at the top. This is lesson 4.5, starting on page 300. And if you'll insert the date. Looking under the section that says important info, adding and subtracting mixed numbers, you may want to read through this again if you have been having trouble. But looking at example 1, 7 and 4/9 plus 10 and 2/9. Just a reminder with the mixed numbers, first you want to do the fractions and then you want to do the whole numbers. Okay, so these fractions have the same denominator. You can go ahead and begin. You also have both positive integers, so you don't have to worry about your integer rules for this. So you can see I went through in purple and added everything up, and I'm showing you in the orange that 6/9 needed to be simplified, and your answer would be 17 and 2/3. These were definitely easy. They get a little harder, especially with subtraction. Pause if you need to. I'm going to move on to the next slide. This goes over example 2. And just a note here. First, you need to get the least common denominator for 6 and 3. Then you can start subtracting the fractions. Then worry about the whole numbers and make sure your final answer is simplified. So looking at example 2, you can see my work in purple. 8 and 5, 6. We're just going to keep the same because 3 will go into 6 evenly. We're just going to change 2 and 1/3 to 2 and 2/6. Now, we are able to subtract 5, 6 minus 2, 6 and get 3, 6. No problem there. 8 minus 2 is the whole number 6. The only thing that needs to be done is the simplifying. Alright, this is where you need to stop and answer the guided questions, and there are a lot. It's A through F. Once you've answered all of A through F, then check back with the next slide and check your answers, and some of them will be worked out. Not all of them. Any others you need worked out will be done in class. Okay, so I picked a couple of different ones, and I mentioned I wasn't going to go in order and do every single problem worked out, but we'll work any tomorrow in class that you need. Alright, so this is page 300 of the guidance, and it will probably take you a lot of space to do that many problems. As you can see in the purple, I've shown my work. What's written in the black was the original question. So for choice C, I needed to get a common denominator for 6 and 9, which would be 18. That problem worked out nicely without anything extra or tricky to worry about, because once the denominators are the same, you're simply adding it all up. You've got 5 and 13/18, and it has already been simplified. For problem F, again, I needed to get common denominators. In this case, I changed both of the denominators to 6, and you can see my work of how that was done. This time with subtraction, again, not too hard because I am able to subtract 4, 6 minus 3, 6 and get 1, 6. We're going to get to some harder problems though next, where you've got to do some borrowing or renaming, and that's where it does get a little tricky. Now, if you'll go ahead and go to the next slide, you can check the answers for A through F, but not every problem is worked out. So if you can't find your mistake and you missed A and you don't see A worked out in the video, then that would be a problem you need to have worked out in class when you get back. So make sure you make a note of which ones you need help with. Okay, moving on. Lesson 4 or 5. Now we're on page 301. This is example number 3. Now if you look in your book, you see there's 2 methods. So on this first page I'm going to walk through method 1. Okay. Again, the problem is written in black and all of my work is shown in purple. And this method number 1 is called the rename or borrow from elementary school terms. Okay. Now in this example, I noted off to the side in red, they already have the same common denominator, but the problem is I can't take 2/3 away from 1/3. That's why the renaming or the borrowing is necessary. So look at what I did in the red with 2 and 1/3. I broke down 2. Here's where I borrowed. Take away the 2, it becomes a 1. But 1 and 3/3 is still equivalent to 2 whole. It's just rewritten or renamed because I had to borrow. It's still the same value. The reason I chose 3/3 to represent the 1 whole is so that the denominators would stay the same. So since 1/3 was attached, I had 3/3 rewritten. So now the problem is 1 and 3/3 plus the 1/3 that's already there. It all needs to be renamed. Okay, so now I've got 1 and 4/3, and I know that looks funny because we're used to changing mixed numbers and improper fractions, but for this purpose we need it to look like this, 1 and 4/3, so that I can do the subtraction with the fractions. So if you go back now to the purple writing over here, trying to make an arrow, 1 and 4/3 comes in, minus 1 and 2/3. So now I'm able to say 4/3 minus 2/3 is simply 2/3. The 1 minus 1 leaves me with 0, and nothing else needs to be simplified. So these require just a little bit more attention to detail, making sure you don't make mistakes. Definitely not stuff you want to try to do in your head. You want to get everything down on paper. Okay, now this is example 3, the same question, but this is method 2, a way that you could rewrite and use improper fractions instead of renaming and borrowing. So with this method, you would need to remember how to get mad with mixed numbers. And just a reminder in red off to the side, that means you would multiply, then add, and keep the denominator. So in red, I showed you 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7. So now in the purple writing, I've shown you 2 and 1/3 has been changed to 7/3. 1 and 2/3 has been changed to 5/3. Now I can perform the subtraction because 7/3 minus 5/3 is 2/3. So method number 1, the answer was 2/3. Method number 2, the answer was 2/3. So it doesn't matter which one you use, it will still yield the same answer. So you need to decide and play around with both of the methods. You may prefer one way and be more comfortable with one than the other, or it may depend. Certain numbers may lend itself to you wanting to change things to improper fractions. Okay, you just kind of have to play with it and decide, and you can always switch back and forth and use the different methods. Okay, so here's where you put it into practice for yourself. So you need to stop the video. You need to do the got it questions, and again, there are a lot. It's letters G through L. Once you've worked all of those, then come back and check the next slide. Some of them will be worked out for you with the answers. Others you'll just have the answer like before, and we can go over any that you still have questions about in class. So pause here and do the got it's. Alright, and we're back and we're checking our work on the got it's. Lesson 4.5, page 301, the got it's. I chose to work G, which is the whole number 7 without any fraction attached, 7 minus 1.5. So notice how the borrowing was redone off in red. I'm showing you what I did, and crossing out the 7, making it a 6, and again 2 over 2 is 1, and 6 plus 1 together make 7, so it's just rewritten, and the way I rewrote it using 2 as the denominator helps me solve the fraction part. So now I have 6 and 2 over 2 minus 1 and 1/2. Okay, so now the subtraction becomes easy. My answer for G is 5.5. Alright, and then we've got problem H. Again, a renaming question. You can see in the red and black off to the far right, I took 5 3/8 and showed you how I renamed that, taking away 1 from the 5 and making it a 4, and then taking 8/8 plus 3/8 equals 11/8. So back to the problem in the purple. I've got 4 and 11/8, and I'm realizing now I don't have common denominators, so I've got 8 and 12, and the least common denominator would be 24. So now I've changed 4 and 11/8. I tried the method of multiplying 8 times what would give me 24, so I've got 8 times 3 is 24. I've got 11 times 3 is 33. So now I'm down to 4 and 33/24 minus 4 and 22/24. You can see my work of how I changed over the common fractions, the denominators. So now when I go to subtract, 33 minus 22 would be 11/24. The 4 minus 4 leaves you with 0. So this can definitely get a little harrowing if you're not paying attention to your details and focused, where you're not having distractions in between working the problems. You definitely need the lined notebook paper. You need to write down step by step, line by line, exactly what you're doing so that you can explain to me how you've solved the problem. There should not be any problems with answers only. I need to see the work with the problem on the same piece of paper with the problem, not somewhere else. It all is right there together. Okay? Your 7th grade teachers are going to ask the same thing of you next year as you're showing work with these fractions solving equations. Alright, if you'll look at the next page, I worked out letter K, which is 3 1/4 minus 1 3/4. So this time I tried the other method of changing the mixed numbers to improper fractions by getting mad. So I've got 13/4 minus 7/4 would give me 6/4. Very easy. The only step I have left is to change 6/4, simplify it. So 4 would go into 6 one whole time with 2 left over, but 1 2/4 can obviously be simplified down to 1 1/2. And again, if you'll turn to the next page, you'll be able to check all of the answers for G through L Only a few of them obviously were worked out in the video to keep the video short, but any of these that you're having trouble understanding the correct answer, we can work together in class tomorrow. So this is the end, and we'll see you in class, and get ready to quiz on fractions 4-4 and 4-5. Thanks. Good night.